As Pro-Life campaign publishes new amendment wording, it's accused of trying to rewrite history. Armed anti-government protesters clash with government troops in southern Albania. Nuclear waste train finally arrives at its destination in northern Germany. And a member of the Orange Order comes to Dublin to discuss the 1798 commemoration. Good evening. The Irish Family Planning Association has accused the Pro-Life campaign of trying to rewrite history after the publication of its new constitutional amendment wording on abortion. The campaign says only another referendum can prevent the introduction of widespread abortion here, and it intends to lobby all the political parties in the run-up to the general election. But the Fianna Fáil leader Bertie Ahern said abortion wouldn't become an election issue.
The starting point for the pro-life demand for another referendum is the 1983 poll on abortion. They maintain the electorate voted to ban abortion then, but this intent was overturned by the Supreme Court decision in the X case. The campaign firmly rules out dealing with the issues involved through legislation, because it says this would allow for abortion on demand.
The choice now is a stark one. The first option, which we are proposing, is a fair referendum giving the electorate the option to vote yes or no to abortion as they did in 1983. The other option is legislation, which would mean wide-ranging abortion.
The pro-life campaign has now put forward another wording for insertion into the Constitution. This says that no law shall be enacted and no provision of this Constitution shall be interpreted to render induced abortion lawful in the state.
The language we've chosen here is unambiguous language, which makes the intention absolutely plain. For example, that language clearly conveys that what we're talking about here is abortion. We're not talking about medical treatments that are carried out on mothers during pregnancy, which may impact, and sometimes do impact, detrimentally on the unborn, sometimes even to the extent of resulting in the death of the unborn.
In this pre-election period, the pro-life campaign intend lobbying politicians of all parties in support of their demand for another referendum. The issue has already revealed differences within Fianna Fáil, but none was evident at today's meeting of the parliamentary party. Bertie Ahern told his deputies and senators they should await the report of an expert group set up to consider all the issues involved. However, Bertie Ahern later acknowledged the divisions in his party between legislation and a new referendum, although he was adamant it would not become an issue in the general election. But what were his views on the new wording put forward by the pro-life campaign?
I only had a very brief look at it, quite frankly, but I'd have to say my own legal people here in Leinster House, without going back to the party at all, were able to put forward a number of difficulties straight away that could arise. And of course, I don't want to bereft them or anybody else for coming up with wordings, but that is always the problem. As soon as somebody produces a wording, people can see immediate difficulties.
Mr. Ahern said there was simply no easy way of dealing with the fallout from the X case judgment. But he was adamant that at the very least, legislation was needed.
In 1992, we stated, and we told the Irish people, that if the substantive issue was lost in a referendum, we would have to legislate. And there were many issues that were highlighted that had to be legislated on, so that has to still remain our policy. The question arises, can you do that satisfactorily and properly and constitutionally, legally perfect, without having another referendum? And that's the issue that we're still looking at.
The majority judgment in the X case ruled that abortion is legal in Ireland in certain limited circumstances. This interpretation is what the pro-life campaign's proposed referendum aims to overturn. Tonight, the Irish Family Planning Association, which deals with many women who travel abroad for abortions, described the pro-life proposal as deeply flawed and said it must be opposed.
It speaks of induced abortion. What it's really trying to do is induce amnesia, to make people forget what happened just 5 years ago with the X case. It's trying to rewrite history and go back to that mythical time. But it's also important to note that what they're trying to do is create a condition in which abortion would be completely unlawful. What that would mean is take out of consideration all issues of rape or incest, pregnancies resulting from that.
The wording that no provision of the Constitution shall be interpreted to make induced abortion lawful in the state is, according to its proposers, designed to outlaw direct abortions. The pro-life campaign says this wouldn't prevent doctors carrying out medical procedures on a pregnant woman which are necessary to save her life, but whose side effects might involve the destruction of the fetus. But tonight, the master of the Rotunda Hospital said the Constitution had proved to be a blunt instrument in dealing with this area and that legislation would be preferable.
Now, I have never faced the situation where I have had a mother that is so sick that she needs to have her pregnancy terminated. I never have done. But I don't want to face that situation in the knowledge that a termination of pregnancy would be illegal. I would prefer not to have it written down in perpetuity that you can never, ever, under any circumstances, have a termination of pregnancy. I think that when you're dealing with individuals, it's very difficult to predict what circumstances may arise in years to come. And I think this is the deficiency of a referendum, in that it is very difficult to legislate for individuals and their precise circumstances.
As ever, the pro-life campaign seeks to talk in absolutes. They told the country 15 years ago that they had the words, they knew what the solution was. The same players are trying to tell us the same thing again, but they're wrong. This is not a black and white issue, and they're attempting to deal with it in an appropriate way.
Already it appears that the arguments of 1983 and 1992 are being dusted down yet again, putting the ball firmly in the politicians'